Chapter 19, The Air Ducts. And so it was. By teaching us to read, they had taught us how to get away. Justin climbed easily up the open door of his cage and vanished over the top with a flick of his tail. He came back an hour later, greatly excited and full of information. Yet it was typical of Justin that even as excited as he was, he stayed calm and he thought clearly. He climbed down the front of my cage rather than his own and spoke softly. We both assumed that by now the other rats were asleep. "Nicodemus, come on out. I'll show you how." He directed me as I reached through the wire bars of the door and felt beneath it. I found the small metal knob, slid it forward and sideways, and felt the door swing loose against my shoulder. I followed him up the side of the cage to the shelf above. There we stopped. It was the first time I had met Justin face to face. He said, "It's better talking here than around that partition." "Yes." "Did you get down?" "Yes." "How did you get back up?" "At the end of this shelf, there's a big cabinet. They keep the mouse cages in it. It has a wire mesh doors. You can climb up and down them like a ladder." "Of course," I said. "I remember now. I had seen that cabinet many times when my cage was carried past it. For some reason, perhaps because they were smaller, the mice were kept in cages within a cage." Justin said, "Nicodemus, I think I found a way to get out." "You have? How?" "At the end of each room, there's an opening in the baseboard at the bottom of the wall. Air blows through one of them and out the other. Each one has a metal grid covering it, and on the grid there's a sign that says, 'Lift to adjust airflow.' I lifted one of them. It hangs on hinges like a trap door. Behind it, there is a thing like a metal window. When you slide it open, more air blows in. But the main thing is that it's easy and it's big enough to walk through. It's easily big enough to walk through and get out. But what's on the other side? Where does it lead?" "On the other side, there's a duct, a thing like a square metal pipe built right into the wall. I walked along it, not very far, but I can figure out where it must go. There's bound to be a duct like it leading to every room in the building, and they must all branch off of one main central pipe. And that one has to lead somewhere to the outside, because that's where our air comes from. That's why they never open the windows. I don't think the windows can open." He was right, of course. The building had central air conditioning. What we had to do was find the main air shaft and explore it. There would have to be an intake at one end and an outlet on the other. But that was easier said than done, and before it was done, there were questions to be answered. What about the rest of the rats? There were 20 of us in the laboratory, and we had to let the others know. So one by one, we woke them and showed them how to open their cages. It was an odd assembly that gathered that night under the dim lights of the echoing laboratory on the shelf where Justin and I had talked. We all knew each other in a way from the passing of messages over the preceding months. Yet, except for Jenner and me, none of us had ever really met. We were strangers, though as you can imagine, it did not take long for us to develop a feeling of comradeship. For we 20 were alone in the strange world. Just how alone and how strange, none of us really understood at first, yet in a way we sensed it from the beginning. The group looked at me as their leader, probably because it was Justin and I who set them free, and because Justin was obviously younger than I. We did not attempt to leave that night, but we went together and looked at the metal grid Justin had discovered, and made plans for exploring the air ducts. Jenner was astute at that sort of thing. He could foresee problems. "With a vent like this leading to every room," he said, "it will be easy to get lost. When we explore, we're going to need some way of finding our way back here." "Why should we come back?" someone asked. "Because it might take more than one night to find the way out, and if it does, whoever's doing the exploring must be back in his cage by morning. Otherwise, Dr. Schultz will find out." Jenner was right. It took us about a week. What we did after some discussion was to find some equipment. First, a large spool of thread was in one of the cabinets, where some of us had seen Julie place it one day. Second, a screwdriver that was kept on a shelf near the electric equipment, because, as Jenner pointed out, there would probably be a screen over the end of the air shaft to keep out debris, and we might have to pry it loose. What we really needed was a light, for the ducts at night were completely dark. But there was none to be had, not even a box of matches. The thread and the screwdriver we hid in the duct a few feet from the entrance. We could only hope that they would not be missed, or if they were,